In this video, I'm going to go over the dynamic input tool from the Developer tab. The power of this tool is it allows you to dynamically read different files over time based on however you set it up upstream. So, for example, you could have a folder where you're going to place different files every single day, and instead of having to manually change the input file, you can set it up to dynamically read whatever file's in there with whatever layout. So we'll go ahead and start with this directory tool, which will give us a bunch of files in a single location for YXDB formats. If I drag the dynamic input tool down, you'll see there's a couple configurations. For the input data source template, what we're going to do here is we're going to give it one file to read as an example. So we will hit edit, and we will set up a connection. I'll go to Files, and I will drag and drop my file in question. So now we want to fill out the options, and whatever options you select here are going to be the options that you read with every file that goes through this tool. In this instance, I want to output my file name only, and then it gives you a preview of what the data looks like. Now, we need to read a list of data sources, or we could modify a SQL query. Well, modifying a SQL query, generally used with reading from databases, that's going to be out of the scope of this video, so we will just look at reading a list of data sources. My personal preference is I like to read the full path. So I make it simple. I know the path that I want to go to, and I'm going to read this file in question. However, you do have the option to either change it dynamically based on the full path, but you can also change the file or table name, or you can even build a string by appending a suffix or a prefix. For me, I like to keep it simple. I like to select my full path and simply use that as the file that I'm trying to read. Now, we have multiple files here. I only want to read one file. So in this example, I'm just going to take a sample of this, and I will read the first file. And before I hit run, one other thing I forgot to mention is you can actually do an action on skipping items. So you can either report an error and the workflow stops if you're trying to read multiple workflows, or you can report it as a warning and the workflow will continue. I'll keep it as report error because I typically just run one file at a time here. As you can see, we've read this data, which has 5 columns, as well as the file name column. Now, let's say I wanted to switch this to the last YXDB in the list, and you hit run. We can see it is a totally different data set with our file name at the end of wy_zips. So, what this allows us to do is in whatever scenario you're in, you don't have to deal with an input tool and changing the value. You can simply drop a directory tool and dynamically through your upstream workflow, pick the file you want and read it dynamically through this tool. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Give a like and a share, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.